seen me for the first time, my name is Faru. And if you know me, then you know that relationships are important to me. More especially the relationship that one has with their self. That is coming to the forefront for me as I begin to observe myself a little bit more than often. I have been having some interesting conversations this past week. Usually my conversations are geared towards other people and pointed that direction, but this week I've been having more conversations looking inwards. And the more time I spend looking inwards, this is nothing new to me. I usually do that, but the perspective from which I have been looking inwards is more from the perspective of other people, and that's been interesting for me. And the more I look into myself that way, I come to the realization that there's a monster in me. Literally, there is no good in me. But still, that doesn't stop me from striving towards, It really doesn't, because, yeah, sure, I, over the years, have learned how not to act on certain things. But nonetheless, it still exists within me, the little bit of anger here and there, the little bit of any malice you can think of, it pops up every now and then. It exists, and more I'm starting to realize that I'll never get rid of it. So why not visit it, Every now and then, just have a conversation with it. Why are you here? Is where I am right now. Not necessarily to indulge it, but more to recognize it as something that exists there in me, as a part of me at times, and part of my very nature. It's a humbling fact for me, actually. It's a humbling realization, really, because it keeps me or my feet on the ground, in the sense that it shows me that though other people who might be struggling with things that I don't struggle with, right, give in to acting upon those propensities, doesn't make them any less weak or strong, because I have my own propensities that I just can't help but give into. And the more that I realize that, the more that I'm able to look past people's actions, that little burst of anger that this person showed, I'm starting to learn more and more to look deeper into it and maybe understand where is that coming from. Because at times when you see emotion that's a little out of place, then it has nothing to do with you. I know, well, at least that's how I've always viewed it this way, but more and more I'm starting to view it that way, as in, if I see emotion that is completely out of place for the situation, then I know to just not take it personally. I try not to take anything personally anyway. But yeah, and those are some realizations that I'm coming to, me personally, that not a good person. What an admission to make on camera. But yes, not at all. Not by any moral standard, at least. If you're going by subjectivity, maybe to some extent I might be considered a good person, but by objectivity standard, not quite. Because if there's an objective standard by which all of us are supposed to adhere to, i.e. morality, then it begs that we adhere to the entirety of it and not just the parts which we are good at upholding, And that finds me wanting, truly does. It finds me wanting. I find myself wanting in that regard, because these are not new things that I'm saying. If you're a reader of the Bible, you know these sayings. But that's where I'm coming to, Even from a standpoint that is extra biblical, it's outside of the Bible, I'm still arriving to the same conclusions, in the fact that there is no true good in me. In as long as though my actions are good, right? But my intention initially that I had to overcome wasn't so good, then maybe I'm not so good. How about that? How about that for truth? Maybe I'm not so good. And I'm okay with that now. I used to want to bury that under the sand. Like, at times I can be quite forceful. Not physically forceful, but with intention. I can be pushy. I can be, when I'm frustrated and I'm up against the wall, I can tend to be extremely pushy without even realizing it. And I'm coming to the realization that that isn't necessarily something that I should. This is one of my propensities. I should run away from or try to cover up or anything like that. Rather express it openly, and when it's openly expressed, then you can see it and recognize it, and then when you recognize it, you can maneuver. You can then maneuver. If you at least recognize it, you maneuver in a way that is also mindful of other people and their views and their personal space and their personal ideas and their self. And these realizations are really freeing me. They really are, from just all these things that have been under the surface for me, because I can express them now. I can express all my propensities. I'm using propensities as a cover-up word, actually. My vices, my my weaknesses. I can express them a little bit more openly and not feel so bad that people would judge me, because subjectivity isn't being your personal view. I mean, isn't necessarily that important to me anymore. It's more important to me that I adhere to the moral standard, the one that is the bar, the one that all of us are supposed to adhere to. I'm at this point sure I'm never gonna attain, but it doesn't stop me from striving. Because the more I strive, the closer I become. Even though, like, patching up this hole means the other one leaks on that side, I'll patch it up for as long as it will stop leaking, and run to that other one and patch that one up and continue for the rest of my life, for as long as I am being my true and genuine self. Because I at times worry about just how maybe open and self, for lack of a better word, I am around and towards people. Sometimes I worry about it, in the sense that I don't know where too much is, and that has gotten me in some situations, and I'm still arriving to the conclusion that there's no better way to do it. Like, I don't know how to measure increments of myself that I should pour into a relationship, or that I should pour into a conversation, or that I should pour into anything. I just pour it all out there. But yeah, I'm starting to be okay with that fact, and realizing that that was probably the most self observing conversation that I've ever had on camera, and probably the most the most honest, right, with myself on camera while other people watch I've ever been. But that was interesting to watch back while editing, because brought me to the realization more and more that I'm human, and I'm okay with that. Starting to become okay with that, being human. Yes, that went on for a while, so I only put on as much as I thought would be interesting, in that it was not so much. It ended up becoming ranting towards the end, and so I didn't feel it was beneficial for me to rant on for a whole hour. So I saved you that trouble, and yeah, that was just me, and being okay with that. Hopefully that gives you some perspective on yourself, and how maybe you see yourself, and how maybe you should try look into yourself. That's just me. It's been your emotional genius, and I'll see you in the next one.